Hey everybody, welcome back to our interview series where I'll be going through with other health practitioners about their stories, how they got started, and of course the people that they help. Today, my guest is Dr. Tom Waller from UK. Dr. Tom qualified from AECC where he was the student president and he was working in Cardiff before he started to open his own practice in the north of England. He's now the vice president for the United Chiropractic Association, or the UCA, and he helps to influence the politics and the running of chiropractic in the country. And he's also recently started a seminar series helping people to find their passion to improve their lives. How are things going at the moment in UK?
Things are interesting times. Thanks for having me. Really interesting times here in the UK, but I think we're all going through it. But it's so nice to connect with people around the world to, share experiences and see how we can all help each other through this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we start from the very beginning then, for some people who have never seen a chiropractor before, how would you describe chiropractic to them?
Fantastic question. And I think what's really interesting is, we are all so individual and also diverse in our lives. And the same is true for how people practice chiropractic. But essentially, I think if you boil it down, chiropractic is something that enables you to become the best version of yourself. So we tend to go and see a chiropractor so we can really become the best version of ourselves. What does that mean? It's so different to the individual. How does the chiropractor work? It works to get the body functioning to its best ability through the nervous system, obviously the brain and spinal cord, which we know controls every function of us. But I think the simplest way to explain it to people is that it allows you to become the best version of yourself.
Okay, and so getting a little more personal then, why did you decide to become a chiropractor then? What led you to this decision?
It's a great question. I think I actually fell into chiropractic. So some people have a great story where it's really helped them, and it certainly helped me in my teens. When I was in my teens, I saw a chiropractor for headaches and also helped with my asthma, which kind of opened my eyes to this amazing profession. I then had a career set in the military, but I also had a mum who probably didn't want me to go into the military, who said, maybe try that chiropractic thing. So I kind of did both, fell into chiropractic. When I started, I certainly wasn't the chiropractor that I am today. And it's just been an incredible journey and a beautiful ride that I suppose I fell into at the start, but really was my true and underlying purpose right from the beginning.
It's funny, I was talking with Johnny Collar about this recently, and we both had the same thing. We kind of fell into it. It's not necessarily that we started. And funnily, I actually talked to my parents about the idea of joining the military because I was like, oh, they're going to pay for my studies and everything. And they're just like, we'll do whatever we have to. Just don't do that. So I completely understand
that. So true.
So tell me, how has it been since graduating? I know, of course, you've worked in some different practices and now open your own. How has that path and journey been?
It's been an interesting one. I suppose, I came out of at a university with a very different idea of what chiropractic is to what I see it as today. I'd also say that, I haven't found it, and, you alluded to the coaching that I do, and that's, we're on a journey to find ourselves throughout life. So the way we express ourselves throughout life will always change. So I suppose when I came out of college, a bit of a know-it-all kind of chap, which led to a failure really. In practice in my first associateship, got a little bit bored, and then moved on to work with a great chap called Dr. Benny Matthew, who's based in Cardiff in Wales, and we sort of grew together, really love for chiropractic, and that then developed and grew again. Met my wife, and we've moved back to her hometown of a place called Lincoln, which is on the sort of northeast side of the country. And just created a really great community practice now that sits in the heart of the community and is there to serve the community. And that's our passion, that's our love right now.
So one thing I was wondering, I know we've talked about this a bit before about, getting more into the philosophy of chiropractic and reading things like the green books. Is this something that you had while at university or something that developed afterwards when you were in practice?
100% after. 100% after. There was, for me, and I say unfortunately there was no green book study. Why unfortunately? The reason the green books are so important is they are the foundations upon which chiropractic is built. And you can't build a house on the sand, because what happens when you build a house on the sand? It gets washed away. So you need those strong foundations, and you do see the difference between chiropractors who have a great success with their practice and those who don't, they've built them on solid foundations. Now, whether those foundations are truly chiropractic and the green books and the philosophy that we hold to be ours, or they're on some kind of meta practice type, bedrock, at least they're on solid foundations, which means the success is there. So I suppose that's something that came after university, but for everybody, I believe it's essential to dive into and figure out. And you mentioned Johnny Collar earlier. I don't know anybody better in the world at delivering a course or an understanding of the green books than him.
Yeah, well, he's going to be presenting for our association here as well soon, so we're really looking forward to it.
Perfect. He's today, isn't he? He's not talking today.
Yeah, we later this afternoon. Yeah, we later
this afternoon. That's amazing. Well, you're very lucky to have him. Very lucky to have him.
Absolutely. And again, he seems like he's really thrown himself in. Again, I guess like the both of us, since finishing the course, that's when these books kind of became more of a big factor. Not just green books, of course, blue books and everything else as well.
Yeah, and I think that's part of developing and growing as a human being. We're always trying to find a search for answers. We're trying to find a search for understanding. Philosophy seems, it's the love of wisdom. It's getting that understanding of what we do and why we do it. And I suppose if we're chiropractors, then we really should think about that. And the green books are what pertain to it. So absolutely true.
So tell me a bit more about your practice then. You mentioned, of course, it's one of more in the community. Are there any particular types of patients that you see or maybe you prefer to see?
So right now, no. Right now, we are really a community practice. So I certainly started my life, in my early days, I was doing a bit of functional neurology. Then I moved into working with athletes and sports people. Then got a bit of a bugbear for pediatrics and children. And now, to be honest, it's community. And I love it. I love the fact that we have an open environment, that people come along, they have their adjustments, they stay, they interact, they build social communities and gatherings together, within that patient base. So for me, there's not an in particular or a particular section that we aim towards. We aim to just be that, again, that bedrock of the community. That's what we do, and that's what we serve.
In terms of people who are coming in symptomatically, are there any particular types of conditions that you see more commonly in practice?
Wow. I think it's always, like, whether people like to say it or not, as chiropractors, it's always going to be that pain, that discomfort that brings a lot of people in. I suppose we do have a bit of a niche for seeing some other more neuro cases. We see quite a few people with like chronic fatigue and that kind of thing is quite popular for us. But to be honest, the majority of people come in, I'd say it's 50-50. 50% people come in with pain and 50% come in because they're referred by someone who came in with pain as a proactive approach. And I suppose that's what it is.
Tell me, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had, either from leaving university or even starting your own practice?
Development of self, finding self. And I think it's really pertinent, especially when you become a chiropractor or a doctor or someone of notability in the Western world in terms of in society, is to own yourself, not wear that mask. So, when we graduate, I'm a chiropractor, I put doctor up on my wall and this is who I am. Well, that's not who you are, that's what you do. And I suppose the biggest challenge was to allow myself to be expressed through what I do. And I suppose that's what's led me to where I am today. And that's what I help a lot of people with, because I see that really is the biggest struggle, is to allow yourself to shine through what you do, not put this mask on and pretend to be something you're necessarily not.
Can you tell me more about that seminar series then? Because I understand that's, again, about finding you, so it's about that same concept.
Yeah, so it is. So for me, the coaching seminar series that I do, we call it Finding You. It's the development of self. It's based around congruency. So essentially, congruency means aligning your values with your actions. And often in life, the reason we get burnt out, frustrated, business isn't successful, relationships aren't successful, is because we have our set of values, but stuff in life, our actions are so far removed from them. And the reason that they're removed from them is because we're actually living up to somebody else's values, what we call social idealisms. You're a doctor, you're a chiropractor, you should wear a shirt. You should be open at this time of the day. You should see these people and act in this manner. All is what society has told us we should do, but is that necessarily us? And the work that I do is helping people peel back those layers, find out who they really are, find out what their gifts and their talents are, and then being able to congruently bind that with their actions and take that into the world. So they have a sustainable, a long-term, and a fruitful, successful life.
And is this just for chiropractors, or are you trying to appeal to other people as well?
No, so a lot of stuff I do, I speak in and out of chiropractic. So it all started really in chiropractic. Then I did a lot of work with the police and fire service, and then it's sort of grown out from that. So the main people I work with really are wellness individuals, so chiropractors, but also other practitioners. And I also work at quite a bit with emergency services as well, and then some businesses on that side too. So it's pretty broad.
I understand, as well as doing public speaking, you've been engaged in some media. How did you come about this? Because I'm sure for many people that would be a great way so they can reach their own communities too.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I got 2 regular wellbeing slots on radio. Done a lot of other media, and it comes down to the fact that people say, "Well, how do I get on media? How do I tell my message?" You've got to flip that around. You've got to go, well, how can you serve these people? How can you approach? And to be honest, you've just got to be willing to do a lot of it off your own back for free, to just get out there and give them what they want. Don't try and go and tell them what they need. And that comes back down to the whole communication stuff I teach people with public speaking. It's the same for radio as it is for stage, as it is for TV. It's meeting your audience with where they're at and logically guiding them to your ideals. But if you want to get on media, it's just about contacting everybody from a how can I help you point of view, not you should have me speak to your audience.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a conversation about this with a colleague recently, and they were saying about trying to reach out to, say, to surgeons or GPs. And they said, "Oh, I've been in and I said I could help their patients with this thing and that thing," and they didn't care. And so, because how would you feel if they did the opposite to you? And you said, "Hey, this GP came in and said that they were going to do something better than I was doing. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but it's probably not going to be very helpful."
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
You mentioned about public, sorry.
But again, fundamental of what it comes down to is to be of service to people. The people on this call, and you all have a gift, a talent, and a service to give. You've just got to meet your audience where they're at, and then show them, how you can do that. Not push, but show them how you can do it.
So in terms of then the public speaking, because I know this is something that you do teach to others as well, what kind of advice would you give, say, at a base level, whether someone is in healthcare, wellness, or even just wants to improve their public speaking?
Great question. Tell a story. The simplest thing is tell a story. It's as old as time in terms of how we have communicated our ideas over the years. If you go to North African or South American tribes, the elders tell stories to teach. And it's the same is true, when we're doing public speaking. I'm sure you have at university been in a lecture where the person at the front has just been doing a monotone over the same thing, and there's no engagement, no fun in there. So if you want to get into public speaking, just learn how to tell a story, and that'll make a difference. I mean, for your audience, if you want, I do have a 7 steps free download. I'll email it to you. You can distribute it to the people as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got it into the description so everyone can have access to that as too.
Yeah.
For yourself, I know your practice, you were looking at hiring more staff. What would you say are some of the most important factors of your success in terms of building up your practice?
Be congruent, be you, just 100% be you. The more I do this, the less I realize. The more I do this, the more I realize people don't want a chiropractor. People want a person who listens to them, and people want a person who understands them and connects with them, who cares and can show them the way. So whether you choose to call yourself a chiropractor or whether you choose to do something else, if you are authentically stepping up as yourself, that's what's going to shine through. So the reason for the success we've had, there's a lot of dogged hard work, and we've created an incredible practice in a short space of time. But it all comes down to the fact of showing up as myself every day, inspiring my team to show up as themselves every day. And also, a lot of it wouldn't be done without my wife, Sarah. who again shows up as herself every day to help me happen.
Is Sarah practicing as a chiropractor, or is she?
Sarah's actually a final year chiropractic student.
Oh, wow.
She's a story. So she was a police officer for 7 years, and she is completely retrained, and as well as managing the practice, she's studying to be a chiropractor.
And tell me a bit more about your role in the UCA. I mean, I was a member when I was in the UK, but it's been a number of years now. How are things going with the UCA, especially with the current crisis at the moment?
So the UCA is doing a great job. I've actually recently resigned from the UCA, so no longer involved in the politics with that. But it opens up other avenues to be involved in other things further. I did 7 years with them, most recently as the vice president. Before that, the student liaison. But the UCA are doing a great job at the moment in terms of, I suppose, keeping everybody going. It's really tough. The problem, what we have at the moment is there's no clear guideline, there's no clear start point, no clear end point, and I suppose it's just keeping that body of people inspired, enthused, and moving in the right direction to serve their people. So it's tough to answer that question because there's no black and white. But the UCA is there as a support to really help the chiropractors in this country who want to be open and who want to serve our public.
And say for yourself then, outside of the UCA's views, what kind of goals would you want to have for the profession, either worldwide or within the UK?
I would like the profession to start, again, it comes back to the congruency thing, start being themselves. Stop trying to live up to something that they're not. Stop trying to prove a point. Find that chiropractors have historically tried to prove a point. We're as good as they are, and they're saying it wrong, we're saying it right. I think if we just learn to dance with it and move forward and just be ourselves in our community, serve the people, that'll make the difference. There's a great Pixar film, I don't know whether you've ever seen it, called Ants. Have you ever seen the Pixar film Ants?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
these little ants have a colony and they are suppressed by these big wasps. And one day the ants realize that they far outnumber the wasps. And when they realize that, the power shifts. Now, chiropractors are far outnumbered by, profession or the thought that is different to ours. We have much richer, deeper and connected and bigger communities within our practice. And the more I've done in politics and sat at the top looking down, the more I realize it works from the bottom up. So it's like counterintuitive to our chiropractic principle, but in terms of how we shift and change society, it comes from the bottom as a rising up. So I would say, if chiropractors can learn to be themselves in their practice, unapologetic for what they do, inspire their community will drive the change that we wish to see in the world.
What about, say, at the institutions? I know we study at the same institution, the AECC. What kind of change would you like to see either there or in other places? I don't want to just pick on AECC.
I would like to see institutions again allow students to be what they want to be and who they want to be. Tertiary education, that university level education, meant to be self-discovery. Secondary education out of school is where you are taught. Tertiary education is meant to be where you discover. Unfortunately, a lot of chiropractic schools are still working within a secondary model. They're teaching as opposed to helping them discover, which comes back down to the green books, discovering that search for wisdom with philosophy and that growth in that sense. So I would like to see that the universities and the colleges allow students to discover, have an open to it, which should lead people to the logical deduction that it is, what we practice.
And what about for yourself? What are some goals you have currently for your own practice and for the seminar series too?
So current goals is to, COVID's been a really good reset for us, to be honest. Like, it's been a brilliant way to restructure of our business, solidify it as that in the community. Seminar series, was starting to go worldwide. I can't currently jump on a plane at the moment. I'm hoping to be in the States in a couple of months' time to take it out there. But I really want to see it to be able to just inspire chiropractors and other health professionals to really just live their best life, expressing their potential with their gifts and their talents. If it is chiropractic, then it is chiropractic. So my goals are really to go into a period over these next few years to really help other people come out of this stronger and fitter.
In terms of changes, if we're going kind of the big changes, what kind of change would you like to see in general healthcare, especially with this current, crisis? A lot of hot potholes have kind of been exposed. What kind of things would you like to see changed?
And I think we're starting already, but personal responsibility. People are starting to become more responsible for their own health and taking it on board. Simple things like here, when the shops shut down, people couldn't get and buy everything that was convenient. They had to start doing stuff for themselves and being creative in their own lives. I think people are also seeing the system and slightly disillusioned with the system. So, healthcare in general, we know that the only person who can get us better is ourselves. And if people can really take that on, become more natural in their approach, and more responsible for their own health, that's the change that I'd like to see.
And given the current lockdown, what kind of advice would you give for people who are spending more time at home, whether it's just social distancing or working from home as well?
Brilliant. And if you're home and you're struggling, health is really simple. It boils down to three things: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. Are we eating well? Are we thinking well? And are we moving? I like to think of it like this: if you went hiking and you went up into the mountains, you took your compass, you took your map, and you said, "I want to get from point A to." You set a bearing on your compass. You line up and walk for 2 miles. Now, as you walk, if you walk on that bearing, you'll hit your. If you get your target or your tongue by just 2 degrees, and continue to walk for 2 miles, you would completely miss your target. So the essence is that it only takes a shift over a long enough period of time to make a difference. So if people are struggling, they're locked down, they're lacking the social interaction, am I eating well? Am I thinking well? Am I moving well? Small things, long time. Eating well. Well, I'm just going to have 1 carrot a day extra because in a year's time, that's an extra 365 carrots that I've had. What's that going to do for your health? Am I going to move well each day? Am I going to do march on the spot for 2 minutes just to get the body moving? Take that over. It's a considerable amount more movement than you would have done otherwise. And thinking well, it simply comes down to gratitude. 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning, 3 things that you're grateful for in the evening. And if you take that over a year's time, that's a lot of stuff you've been grateful for. So small things, long period of time, eat well, move well, think well.
So I know for yourself, you're big on habits, as well as not just now, but of course, even before this, what kind of habits were you having and how had they maybe changed while you've been in lockdown?
So for me, it's again that eat well, move well, think well. One of the things I teach is the morning routine. For me, a morning routine is essential. It doesn't have to be a crazy thing, but it's, I teach a 6-minute morning routine or an hour's morning routine. It's hydration, movement, and gratitude. So the brain is wired is that you can only change the thought and the patterns within your brain when it's in a certain state. When we're sleeping and when we're awake, I'm sure you're aware that your brain will be in 2 very different states, completely different states. As we move between those 2 states, we go into what's called alpha and theta brainwave states. This is when we're most suggestible. This is when our mind can be changed. And most of us will wake up in the morning, we'll have a look at this thing, and it will start to create anxiety and stress. Some of us will slam the alarm off and shit, Tuesday, I wish it was. And we're starting our day with negative connotations in a mind that's suggestible. So I find the most important habit to have in terms of being successful for yourself, for your life, is to get that morning set right. Set the day with purpose. So you wake up in the morning, you hydrate, you get some water in. Like, you know, I think you can get about a 20% reduction in brain activity with dehydration in the body. When we sleep at night, we expel a lot of water. So just having that water first thing in the morning, start to get the brain firing. Then you start to move your body. It can be marching on the spot. It can be a little workout. Just get your breath up. As the body moves, the brain grooves. The body moves, the brain grooves. Now you're firing all the connections within your brain. And then we go into a state of gratitude and affirmation, how we want the day to go, how we want our life to be. And it will change the neural pattern because you're in the alpha and theta brainwave state. And then you can go into your day and deal with any negativity that might. So for me, habits and routines, it's always the same, whether I'm on the road, whether I'm at home, whether I'm locked down, or whether I'm not. That morning routine is essential for me. Hydration, movement, and gratitude.
You mentioned about brainwaves. I know that's a big feature, especially in, say, like Joe Dispenza's work. And before you mentioned a bit about, was it values, which was his DiMartini. Is
Yes.
meditation something that you were active in as well?
I tend to teach. So I'm a little bit more soulful than that. So I like to connect with soul, and I like to connect with spirit. And my form of meditation is connection with self. So we have this physical external manifestation of us, but the only thing that's true and will continue on beyond our physical existence is our soul. You know, the purpose of life, I believe, is to build and cultivate this soul. We do that through service. And the way we connect with soul is we connect in to the body. And I like to practice what I call mindlessness, not mindfulness, not meditation, mindlessness, which essentially means we just try and switch off the thought. And if you get to that point where you get between thought, that's when you really get the clarity and the connection with self. And it takes a lot of practice. I like to think of it as you get yourself into a calm state. I like to go into nature to do this. And if a thought comes into your mind, just imagine a balloon flying past. And you notice that balloon. You don't go and try and grab it. You acknowledge it and let it move on. And when you start to be able to do that with your thought, you suddenly start to create this mindlessness, which allows you to connect with center, connect with self, which is my form of meditation or mindlessness.
So when we talk about the 3 T's for chiropractic, of course, trauma, toxins, and thoughts, how big a factor do you think thoughts, emotions, and the mental stresses are on our healing and our sickness as well?
They are the foundation of it. You know, if you were running away from a lion, you fell and broke your leg, you wouldn't try and fix the leg, you just try and keep running. If I put you on if you're running away from a lion, there's only so long you could do that for before your body would give up. That lion's creating stress. The mental and emotional stress, I think, is the number one reason that we get sick and the number one reason that we don't heal. And I think we have a huge power to be able to do something about that in terms of the chiropractic adjustment, in terms of rewiring the brain, but also I think comes back to that personal responsibility of the public I spoke about to actually self-inspect that and work with that.
So before we end today, getting a little more personal, I know you've given some advice for people who are watching or for people in the public. If you could speak to yourself, say 5 or 10 years ago, what kind of advice would you want to give to yourself?
That is a great question. I think about this when I saw you 3 questions earlier. For me, it would be fail faster. Fail faster. Just make mistakes and move on. Like, at the end of the day, the only time that really exists is right now. If we're worrying about a mistake, it's because we're living in the past or we're worrying about the future. Just do something and be prepared to fail faster, and that'll make all the difference.
That's great advice, to be honest. We all should fail to earn a bit more. Otherwise, it's a hard pedestal to fall from.
Yeah, true. I might fall from small heights and keep going, or just climb up and then I'm down. And I think this whole COVID thing, to be honest, and I don't like to focus on it too much, but it's actually given us a lesson. It's allowed us to really recheck our lives. What is important to us? What is not important to us? What was working in our business? What is not working in our business? and then enables us to reset and move forward. BJ Palmer talked about slipping and checking all the way through. So, my advice would just be fail faster, keep moving forward.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Sorry I was a little bit late getting onto the call. Thank you everybody who's been watching this either live or on the replay. And if you have any questions for Tom, either about his practice or of course his course, he will be tagged in the description. I'll try to make sure we get the 7 steps that you mentioned about as well. Yep. And if anyone has any questions for me, of course, you can always reach me by WhatsApp or by email, and I'll make sure I get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining me again today.
Shaan, thank you for everything you do. I really appreciate it, and I'm here for your audience if they need.